Welcome back to Bombastic Nation and ting. I'm Mr. Giant and I'm back with some more vibe for all you. Yes, you know what I mean? And it's freezing out there. It's like 10 freaking degrees out there, 10 degrees. I'm freezing my tropical butt out there, man. Yeah, there was snow on the ground. I just went outside, there's ice on the ground. It's crazy out there. I hope you guys are staying safe wherever you are. You know what I mean and thing. I don't know if it's snowing in whatever country you in right now. I know if it's in the tropics, no. If you're in Africa, probably not. You know, but Europe, Russia, I know there's some snow on the ground there or something. But I'm freezing, man. But we gonna watch this one here. This one popped up on my screen here, and I was like, this looks like it's going to be interesting. What was that? What was that? But anyway, this one is called Victorian London's Most Dangerous Slum by Fenian Barracks. Yeah, this is something interesting. You see, because I live in what might be concerned, or work mainly in what might be concerned the ghetto. You know what I mean? I don't know, I wouldn't call it a slum per se, it's the ghetto. Struggling people, working paycheck to paycheck and thing like that, you know. But it's ain't nothing new because, you know, the rich always keep the stuff and the poor always struggle to maintain. So let's go ahead and YouTube and simmer and see what a Victorian slum in London was like.
The streets of 19th century East End London, between Gale Street and Furze Street, were nicknamed, rather offensively, the Fenian Barracks, on account of their Irish inhabitants. It is arguably a less well-known slum than the more familiar St.
Okay, it's not by Fenian Barracks. That's what the slum was called back then. So, you know, let's just correct that there real quick before we continue.
Giles Rookery, that was a notorious feature of the metropolis earlier in the era. You can hear a genuine account of life in that poverty-stricken district in videos we have available on the channel. Lying close to Limehouse Cut, the Fenian Barracks, in contrast, blighted late Victorian London, and was perhaps even its worst. By all contemporary accounts, the barracks was a wretched rookery of villains with rats, yet more terrifying. To look at First Green today, just south of Devon's Road in Bow, elicits a very different response than the same view would have done well over 100 years ago. The back-to-back terraces have long since been cleared away, and little of the townscape resembles the dystopian world this once was. The Earl of Devon Public House still stands at the corner of Furze Street and Devon's Road, but every other remnant of the Victorian era has gone, other than the names of Furze, Gale, and Hawgood streets that remain as a reminder of the barracks. The central green and a block of modern flats now occupy the land where Box and Eastward streets once stood perpendicular to Furze and Gale streets. The Limehouse Cut, of course, also still flows as it did in the past, less the wharfs and factories that lined its banks. Later in this video, we will discover the life and people of the barracks through the eyes of an investigator working for Charles Booth, 1840 to 1916. Booth is perhaps best known for his Inquiry into Life and Labour in London, a study of working class life in London towards the end of the 19th century. It is thanks to his account and the police that accompanied him on his investigation of the East End that we can bring to light the reality of life for its inhabitants.
You know, you ever notice that, what I notice with the makeup of society here is the police is there to protect rich areas, and they're in the poor areas to quell crime. So you see, there's a preconceived notion of the people who live in the ghetto. You know what I mean? They're perceived as lazy, not very motivated, uneducated, you know. So they get treated less than. You know what I mean? So what we have here is and the same things stands today and through time. You know what I mean? And poor people get looked down on. They get looked down on for the conditions for which they live in. But when you pay people not enough money to survive and stuff, how are they going to spruce up their house? And I'm from the third world. I mean, we do our best to spruce up stuff and all of that there. But, you know, how are they going to pay to spruce up stuff? You know? I mean, I'll be honest with you. I'm a perfect example. I work paycheck to paycheck. I don't have a fancy house and nothing like that. You know what I mean? I'm too busy trying to survive day to day. So, should I be looked down on? I mean, I have an education, college education, university education. I don't have a lot of friends that are like that, and they're just surviving, man. And they live in the areas that, you know, everybody else live, struggling, but they get looked down on. I work as a bagger, well, a courtesy clerk, they call it, because you do everything in there, in the stores, and anymore. But you get looked down on, like big time, you know, and people come in there and they talk down to you. Even people who are on the same level as you are talk down to you. So, living in a slum or ghetto is a myriad of reasons why people would live there. Mainly it's economic. Some people are unmotivated, I ain't gonna lie, they are. But it's kind of cool to watch this and see that it's the only difference is technology, really, and quote unquote being more civilized. That makes a difference between now and then. Certain things are easier to do, easier to get to, you know what I'm saying, and thing. But anyway, let's keep watching this. Let's keep watching this.
His poverty maps are a well-known, if not overly qualitative, representation of social inequality in the metropolis. His study focused more on class difference, moral qualities, and character than statistical factors such as income, subjective, and with the potential to be influenced
moral.
by whom he interviewed.
Okay, you know, I have to say this.
Prejudice.
Morality is predicated on the culture you come from. What might be moral in one culture might be immoral in another culture. And I could tell you that coming from a different culture to this culture. Simple things as words that to say back home that's not considered like offensive, it's considered offensive here. Just simple things like that, you know what I'm saying? And when they talk about morality and all of that, who states what is moral and what's not moral? There's certain basic things: don't kill, don't steal, you know, don't hurt people and stuff. Is that moral, or should that just be human? Because most humans don't hurt people. Not that if they get the chance they wouldn't, but it depends on the society. Because check this out, where I live here, I call it a warrior mentality. You know what I mean? Even the so quote unquote good people speak of shooting somebody if they come in. I'll let him up, let him come in here. I got something for him. But we live in a place where, well, for me, there's a real warrior mentality. Those are the ones that get the women. I ain't never lied to you. You understand what I'm saying? And you have to have this tough mentality. So in the ghetto or in the slum, it's a dog-eat-dog world. And people will gravitate to those who they think are physically stronger. Because in order to survive in a slum or a ghetto, you have to combine being physically strong with being intelligent. And sometimes that don't even work, but let's keep watching that there, you know what I mean?
And grievances, particularly the police, but perhaps all the more interesting for it. You may have your own opinion on his maps, and do please watch the video to the end for more discussion about this.
Okay.
I would be interested to read your views in the comment section. The maps are, nevertheless, fascinating, and all the more graphic for colour coding the very poorest streets in dark colours compared to the bright colours of wealthy neighbourhoods. Before we move on, please consider clicking the subscribe button for more content like this. If you find this video interesting, I would really appreciate it if you could give it a thumbs up and share it widely with friends and family. You can also support the channel and get access to exclusive perks by becoming a channel member. Check out the Join button and description for more. The terrace housing in the Limehouse area of the East End was constructed largely in the latter half of the 19th century. In fact, if you stood here at the time the journalist Henry Mayhew was concerned with the state of the rookeries of St. Giles and Seven Dials in the 1840s, then you would find yourself in a low-lying meadow and marsh. The Limehouse Cut, the oldest canal in London, would have featured in your eyes as a rather bucolic body of water with St. Anne's Church Limehouse in the distance. A handful of houses and workshops, a mill here and there, and the masts of Thames ships on the horizon. By the time of Booth's investigation, little of that world remained beyond the aforementioned church and
Things
the
change.
Cut, which now defined the southern extent of the barracks. He described Bow and land west of the River Lee as a vast township built on low marshy land. Furthermore, he says, there is a great deal of jerry building. Desolate streets spring into existence and fall into decay with startling rapidity and are only made habitable by successive waves of occupation. Anything will do so that the house be run up. Any tenant will do who will give the house a start by burning a little coal in it. The first tenants come and go till one by one the houses find permanent occupants. The streets settle down to respectability and the rents rise. Or a street may go wrong and get in such
Are they gentrifying back then too?
Short of entire destruction seems possible. Among the early troubles of these streets are fevers, resulting, it is said, from the foul rubbish with which the hollow land has become levelled. This district has had many such troubles and is steadily living them down. Charles Booth and his investigators accompanied police on their beats in London and recorded descriptions and characterizations of the streets, their inhabitants and industry. Bow District, and particularly the barracks, had a dangerous reputation with the police. We now hear from the diary of
That's
George
like every ghetto
Duckworth,
now.
one of Booth's investigators, as he makes his way through the streets of East London to the barracks, accompanied by Mr. Carter, District Inspector of Police, on the 28th of May, 1897. Following his visit, the slum was color-coded.
Okay, these areas there that he speak of, comment down below, tell me what they're like now. Have they been gentrified? Are they still ghettos there? I've heard of East London. I've heard stories about it over the years and stuff while I was back home on the island. I don't hear much about it right now. But, you know, is it now like an area where there's a lot of immigrants, an area where there's still a lot of poor people and struggling people? Because for me, financial impoverishment does not make you morally poor, I guess, for lack of a better term, or morally less human. That's better. Forget the poor part. Less human. All right, let's keep going here.
May 1897. Following his visit, the slum was color-coded in black on the Booth map.
Why it gotta be
Classified
black?
as the lowest class, vicious, semi-criminal. You will learn what he and the inspector thought of its inhabitants and why their activities and behavior meant this was a place that no unfamiliar person, not even the police, would visit alone. Being Monday, the district was alive with tallymen, insurance agents and rent collectors. Tallymen in dog carts, smart, and some have a groom in livery with a pile of samples under the seat. Some on foot and calling for orders. Some on bicycles. Others less smart and driving a cart on which was piled furniture, nets, etc. Bow Street seems to be the paradise of tallymen. In the Campbell Road they have their dwellings, and in the neighbourhood young men, most of them, of a Jewish countenance. There is hardly a thing they won't sell you. Always a bargain, but always much dearer than you could.
You know, I never understand that. You know how they categorize people as far as race is concerned? Oh, that one is there. And so they must be the bad people. The blacks are there. The Jews are there. You know what I mean? The poor white people are there. And they categorize them like that. And they categorize them by heritage, you know. Yeah, mainly by heritage. And you see, the Jewish people are there, and they do this and they do that. Well, if you're poor, you do whatever you can to eat. See, you got to look at it from a different perspective instead of going, well, those people there. I don't care what race you are, what nationality you are. If you got a family to feed, you're going to do whatever it takes. Most people don't break the law, but some do. But if your family is starving, you're going to do what it takes. You know what I mean? You're going to rob somebody. You're going to, you know what I'm saying? You're not going to just go, oh, well, I'll just lay here and die, you know, and wither away or something like that. And if a group is an quote-unquote oppressed group, then that sort of behavior is going to be prevalent, especially if they're not included within the framework of the system that they live under. So I tend not to look down on people as much. No, you kill somebody or rape somebody or you're a pedophile and stuff like that. That's a whole different story there. But if somebody walk in a store and shoplifts a loaf of bread or something like that, it's quite possible because they're hungry. So how you could say, oh, you know, they're bad people. If they're hungry and they shoplift, granted, you have to look at how they get into the situation where they have to do that, and you know all the little nuances and stuff there. But the point is, if they're living in a slum or a ghetto, they don't have the means to go out and just buy food every day and stuff. They won't steal food to feed their family or themselves. Does that make them a bad person, or does that or is that just simple survival? You know what I mean? Let's keep watching.
But always much dearer than you could buy in a shop. They run great risks of bad debt. The live must pay for the dead. There was an insurance agent with a heinous-like air, a brown or black billycock hat, and a suit of ditto. The debt collectors nearly always had a top hat, an umbrella, and an invariable black coat. Pawn shops doing a fair business with women who were putting away their husbands' own Sunday clothes. One of the signs of a poor street is the pawn shop at the end of it. A pawn shop must be near its customers. Pawn shops are used quite as much by the poor as a means of safety, as a means of making money. You know your clothes will
Still
not
do.
be
All the pawn
either
shops are around here.
or ill-used while they are at your uncle's, and it is worth paying something for this. The block of streets between Furs Street and Gale Street are the worst in the district. Worse than in almost any district in London. 3 policemen wounded there last week. This block sends more policemen to hospital than any other in London. Men are not human, they are wild beasts. You take a man or a woman and rescue is always organised. They fling brick bats, iron, anything they can lay their hands on. All are Irish cockneys. Not an Englishman or a Scotchman would live among them. The group is known as
That's another group of people
Fenian Barracks.
being
The
vilified.
streets have all the appearance of semi-vicious poverty. Hatless women on clean to doorsteps. 2 or 3 women drunk, shoeless and stockingless. Children in great numbers, notwithstanding a 3:15 p.m. They should be in school. In Hallgood Street, a group of many men between 18 and 20 years of age playing pitch and toss. One older man of about 25 to 30 years among them. Consternation at our appearance. Free fight to get out of the circle. Carter surprised that they let us get so close. What were the crows doing? Crows being those put to watch and keep care. All knew Carter by sight well. Eastwood Street is the roughest of this rough lot. The doors leading to Fat Refinery at the corner of Hargood Street. Not only are the inhabitants savage, they think nothing of taking a human life. The beasts are terrifying. You should come down here of an early summer morning, if possible after a shower of rain. Rats, not in twos or threes or in tens or 20s, but in thousands and tens of thousands. The street will be covered with them. So will the yard of the factory. Rats, not small rats, but big and fat, the size of cats. You knock a flagstone with your boot.
I mean, rats, man, they just go anywhere, but they're scavengers. But I have a funny story about rats. I used to live in New York, right? Brooklyn, New York to be exact. And I'll be honest with you, man, that's the most rats I've seen around humans in all my travels. And here we have river rats. They come out of the Ohio River, which is like 2 blocks from around there. They call them river rats. But here's a funny story. Now, when I was married and I was living in New York, we went to a chicken spot. I ain't gonna name the place, but we went to this chicken spot, right? And my wife at the time is from Eastern Kentucky. That's up in the mountains, so there's nothing up there. There's just like a house and a cemetery and a church and a couple of houses on the other side of the street. So she ain't seen nothing like that neither, and I ain't never seen nothing like that. I didn't see very many rats on the island at all. But so we pull up into the drive-through of this place, right? And we sitting there and we look over to the dumpster, and there's about 20 rats over there just chilling, eating the scraps and stuff. Now, I'm gonna call her Loretta. I ain't gonna use her real name, but Loretta is used to the rats here in this part of the country. When you go, you make a noise, rats scurry away. Man, in New York, she lean out of the car right next to the dump and go, thinking the rat's gonna run. All the rats, all 20 of them, just look around at her like, what you gonna do? I ain't even joking, man. They turn around and look at her like, man, what you gonna do? You know what I mean? Bring it. And went back to eating. And on the subway, you could see rats scurrying around and stuff like that. These animals they'll survive anywhere or anything. I think long after us humans are gone, those bad boys gonna be here chilling. I hate rats. They stink, and they will attack if need be. But that's my funny rat story in a big city. And we didn't live in the ghetto neither. You know, we didn't live in like the slums or nothing like that. They just have rats up there, man, like tons of rats.
You knock a flagstone with your boot, and away they go with a rush, a hissing sound from their feet upon the pavement that will make your blood run cold. Most evenings, or even during the day, especially after showers, they will come up in search of water. Water is scarce in the drains in which they live. They will eat anything. A load of hams were condemned by the inspector as unfit for human food and brought down by barges to be boiled down for train oil. They arrived one evening, were unloaded, and left till morning on the quay. In the morning, nothing was left but brown husks with the outward appearance of hands. The rats had eaten out all that was inside. Carter saw them himself. What would happen if rat food ran short? Duckworth left this sentence hanging
There's
as a
32
rhetorical
humans.
question, leaving the barracks over Stinkhouse Bridge to continue his tour of the East End. When later remarking upon Bow Street district generally, he stated that there are many bad spots and a great many very poor streets. Now, from the police point of view, the barracks is the worst. This is a spot which though not perhaps worse than any other given spots, if taken in bits, yet as a whole is consistently bad, and from its size very difficult to deal with. Small streets may be bad in themselves, but they can be tackled. A large block is another thing altogether. Crows can be posted to give the alarm, then travel from house to house from within if chased. As was typical for rookeries, adjoining houses had internal passages designed for eluding police pursuit. A cry of "Police!" brings help from every house. The inhabitants hustle the police. They organise rescues, not the least bit of good anything less than 6 constables going down in case of a rat.
See, that's what I mean. It transcends race and stuff. You see, here they are, and they're all like, white people, for lack of a better description. And they're out there, they have people checking for the cops and stuff and all of that. But then, where I am here, and in this time, and I know somebody had said on there that equating back then with now, I personally equate it because I don't think the human's mentality changed much. The culture itself may have changed, or the way people do things may have changed, but the mentality is the same. Survival, right? If you're poor, you're trying to survive. And good Lord, I lost my train of thought. But anyway, this is what I wanted to say. Now, in ghettos here, mainly, especially in the big cities, you have immigrants and black people. I'm gonna just be straight up, because But I've lived in in big cities where there's predominantly minorities, and they're struggling, and they're stealing, and there's drugs, and all of that. But I live right here where the predominant is of a white race, and it's the same thing. So we're not that different. We won't survive regardless to how we're going to survive. You know what I'm saying? And what might look like living in squalor to everybody else wouldn't be comfortable, but it's what they have, so they make do. And there's a problem here now, and I don't know if they had that problem then, is where people in that same situation looked down on people in similar situations to them. They look down on each other. But what they try to find is moral reasons to look down on each other. Because you're in the same boat, you're broke, you ain't got nothing, you're struggling, you're paying your paycheck to paycheck rent, but they look for that moral stuff. Are you a good Christian? You know what I mean? Are you following the cultural norms that are set forth for you? So we look down on each other like that. I wonder if it was like that back then too, you know what I mean? Is there like a class within that poorer class? That's class structure within that poorer class. And it's not a financial superiority, it's a moral superiority. It's what the culture says right and the culture says wrong. They're trying to follow that in order to fit in to the bigger scheme of things. It might not make sense, but from my own experience and living here and taking in consideration coming from the third world and stuff like that, I could differentiate from what culture says and what humans do. And I guess everybody could do that to a certain degree too, except if you buy into the whole, work hard and you're going to make it. A lot of people here said, work hard and you're going to make it. And I'm like, well, was your parents wealthy? No. How about your grandparents? No. How about your great-great-grandparents? No. All working class, all hard, all working paycheck to paycheck. So there's some kind of disparage. I'm sorry, the doorbell is ringing there. But anyway, there's some kind of a disparity between how people think and stuff. You see, that bloody thing made me lose my train of thought. Let's go ahead and watch this there. The neighbors are always ringing the doorbell, and the landlord have it so that when the doorbell ring in one apartment, it ring in this apartment. So that's what happens to me there. But let's keep going here.
Not the least bit of good anything less than 6 constables going down in case of a row or any prospect of having to send off anyone to the police station. Duckworth talked more about the inhabitants in the district generally, and in particular, the streets just north,
living in the
and
ghetto.
close to the barracks, which he classified as very poor. He says, inhabited by many Irish and work in the gasworks. A rough lot, given to drink and racing.
They had to be rough though. They live in those
Racing
conditions.
a favourite sport for Sundays at the bow racing ground. Whippets are dogs of the greyhound type, smaller than regular greyhounds, and larger and stouter than Italian greyhounds, of the individual Cockney Irish dweller in the barracks. Carter had a poor opinion. Get him alone and he is a coward, but let him and a pal get you alone and they think nothing of knocking you down and robbing you. 2 or 3 of them will often wait to catch a single man on his way half drunk out of the public house. In summary of Duckworth's account, this was an era when appearance mattered, according to Andy Carter. Even an unwashed doorstep was an indictment of lacking morals. The physical character of the street, and especially its inhabitants, was likely, however unfairly, to influence the opinion of the authorities as to the value of such people, no more so than the Irish. Londoners born in the city and of Irish origin were referred to as Irish Cockneys, and it's clear that the community was regarded as a source of crime by the police and therefore worthy of suspicion. A whole neighbourhood could be said to be occupied by Irish Cockneys even if there were more residents of English
So it's the same thing, huh?
That this stereotype
like I was saying
had its
earlier.
origins in the living conditions the Irish were forced to suffer earlier in the era, and old prejudices endured. One shortcoming that has been noted of Booth's survey and the analysis of the Fenian Barracks is his reliance on the police to accurately inform him of social issues. They looked at people and neighbourhoods through the lens of crime, and if certain streets happened to house problem families at a particular point in time, or a policeman was injured or met his death, then this was likely to colour opinion of the wider community. Booth's famous poverty maps may not, therefore, paint an accurate picture for his black and blue streets. Behaviours such as vicious or semi-criminal are potentially one-sided generalizations. Inequalities such as access to services beyond the control of occupants are not given enough attention, nor any positive qualities. By 1929, when the East End was surveyed again by the London School of Economics, the level of destitution was falling. Nevertheless, the Fenian Barracks remained an ugly pocket of chronic poverty.
So you see what I'm saying? It all boils down to that on the end, what he said there, you know what I mean? It's all what the authorities see in those people. And that sort of trickles down into the way the police are treating them. And of course there's crime, there is crime. I'm not saying there's no crime, but I'm saying if they live in those conditions, they're going to commit some kind of crime to get ahead. No, not to get ahead, to eat, to find a proper place to sleep. You know what I mean? And it haven't changed. I've been in some ghettos here, and it's the same thing. I've been in some ghettos in other places I've been in other countries and stuff like that. And it's pretty much the same thing. It's different people, it's the same thing. And that's why I always say, even in our quote-unquote inhumane behavior, it doesn't matter where you go. It doesn't matter what nationality you are. If you're living in a certain circumstance, you're going to react to that circumstance. Am I right or am I wrong? Comment down below. Tell me what you think of all of that. Drop me some, give me some of your opinions and thing in it down there. You know what I mean? Because the more we know, the better we understand. Maybe we ain't going to look down on each other as much as we are. And thank you all for watching this with me. If you haven't subscribed and you got to the end of this video now, that means you like what you saw. Go ahead and subscribe. Drop a like on the video and comment, alright? And in the meantime, y'all take care of each other. Cool runnings.